What if the wisest man who ever lived could guide you through the noise of modern life, through endless scrolling, restless nights, and choices that never seem to end? Imagine a voice from 3,000 years ago, speaking straight into the heart of your struggles today. A king whose wisdom calmed disputes, built nations, and searched for meaning in all things, yet whose lessons still echo into our world of constant notifications and overwhelming decisions. Tonight, we'll uncover Solomon's timeless insights, not just as ancient words, but as a gentle map for your own life. If you stay with me until the end, you may discover that the wisdom you've been searching for has been waiting quietly all along. Hello, my dear friend, and welcome. I am so very glad you are here tonight. Before we begin, I would love to know where you are listening from. It always warms my heart to hear the different places around the world where people join together for these gentle Bible stories. Please feel free to share in the comments where you are listening. And if you enjoy these calm reflections, remember to like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who may also need peace and encouragement tonight. You will also find a playlist linked in the description below, and I invite you to listen through it, as it will guide you on many journeys of wisdom and rest. Now let us settle in together. Find a quiet place where you can feel at ease. Take a slow breath. Allow your shoulders to release their tension, and prepare your heart for a story that began thousands of years ago, yet still speaks gently into the noise of our modern lives. What if the wisest man who ever lived could guide you through the constant noise that surrounds you today? What if his voice, from 3,000 years ago, could reach into this moment, whispering calm truth into the endless scrolling, the restless nights, and the choices that never seem to stop? Tonight we are going to explore the life and wisdom of King Solomon, a man whose understanding was said to surpass that of anyone before him, and whose insight still touches on the deepest struggles of our own time. You may know Solomon as the son of King David, the shepherd boy who became king of Israel. When Solomon was young and newly crowned, he prayed not for riches or power, but for wisdom. He asked God for an understanding heart so that he might rule his people with fairness and discernment. And in response, God granted him wisdom beyond measure, so great that people from distant lands traveled to hear his words. Kings and queens, merchants and scholars came to Jerusalem, eager to learn from him. His reputation spread like the rising of the sun, steady and undeniable. Yet Solomon lived in a world far different from ours. His city was not filled with glowing screens or endless notifications. His palace echoed with songs and prayers rather than the buzzing of phones. And still, even in his time, people faced uncertainty, confusion, and the overwhelming challenge of choosing the right path. Solomon's gift was the ability to cut through that confusion, to bring clarity where others saw only noise. That is why his story matters so much to us now. We live in a time of extraordinary connection. At any hour, we can reach for a device that places the entire world in our hands. News streams pour into our minds from countless sources. Advice comes at us from friends, strangers, and algorithms. We face choices about what to believe, where to turn, and how to live with purpose in a world that never sleeps. The weight of these choices can leave us weary, uncertain, and scattered. This is what people today often call information overload. It is the feeling of drowning in voices, each one pulling in a different direction. It is the restless energy of decision fatigue, the exhaustion of being asked to choose again and again, from the moment we wake until the moment we close our eyes. Which path is best? Which source is trustworthy? Which stream is worth following? The questions never seem to end. And here is where Solomon speaks across the centuries. His wisdom was not about memorizing rules or learning clever tricks. It was about discernment, the ability to see through the surface and understand the heart of a matter. When two people stood before him, each claiming the same child, Solomon did not simply listen to their arguments. He looked deeper, seeing the truth of love itself, and in doing so, revealed what words alone could not prove. That gift of discernment is what we so desperately need in our modern world. Imagine sitting with Solomon today. Imagine telling him about the pressures of modern life, about the endless notifications, the headlines that contradict each other, the voices on social media that argue with passion but not always with truth. Imagine his calm gaze, the patience in his eyes. He would not rush. He would not be distracted. He would listen, and then he would guide you to see clearly what really matters. Solomon teaches us that wisdom begins with the fear of the Lord, which is not terror but reverence, the humble recognition that God is greater than we are, and that true understanding comes from aligning our lives with His ways. This perspective lifts us above the swirl of confusion, reminding us that not every voice deserves equal weight, not every opinion carries truth, and not every choice is worthy of pursuit. Some things are fleeting, like smoke in the wind. Others are lasting, like a foundation of stone. Think for a moment of the times you have felt torn between choices. Perhaps you scrolled through endless advice, each opinion louder than the last, until your heart felt heavy and your mind clouded. In those moments, the gift of discernment is like a lantern in a dark room. It does not erase the shadows all at once, but it gives enough light to see the next step, to choose wisely rather than hastily. Solomon himself experienced both the blessings and the burdens of wisdom. People praised him for his insight, yet he also wrestled with the meaning of life. In his writings, especially in Ecclesiastes, he reflected on the vanity of endless pursuits, the futility of chasing after what does not last. He saw that people strive for wealth, knowledge, pleasure, and success, but often end up empty, because these things by themselves do not satisfy the soul. His conclusion was that wisdom rests in recognizing God's hand in all things, in finding joy in simple gifts, and in living with reverence and humility. How different this sounds from the messages we hear today. Our modern world often tells us that more is always better. More information, more possessions, more recognition. Yet this endless chasing often leads to exhaustion rather than peace. Solomon, sitting in the quiet halls of his palace, surrounded by treasures and achievements, realized that even he, with all his greatness, could not find fulfillment in these things alone. His heart longed for something deeper, something eternal, and so we are invited to pause, to let his ancient words wash over us like calm water, to remember that life is not meant to be a frantic race, but a journey where wisdom guides us gently toward what truly matters. In our daily struggles, wisdom shows itself in small choices, choosing when to speak and when to remain silent, choosing kindness over harshness, choosing rest over relentless striving, choosing to listen carefully rather than rushing to judgment. These are the decisions that slowly shape the peace within us, and they are the kinds of choices Solomon himself valued. When we think of Solomon, it is easy to imagine him only as a distant figure, a king in a golden palace, far removed from our ordinary lives. But his story invites us to see him instead as a fellow traveler on the path of searching for meaning. He knew what it was to face questions without easy answers. He knew the weariness of trying to make sense of the world. And he knew the beauty of moments when clarity broke through the confusion. Tonight, as we reflect on his life, we begin to see that wisdom is not about having every answer. It is about learning how to seek, how to listen, and how to recognize truth when it appears. It is about quieting the noise, both around us and within us, so that we can discern what is lasting, what is good, and what is worthy of our hearts. In this way, Solomon's insights become more than ancient sayings. They become gentle companions for us in our daily lives. When you wake tomorrow and feel the weight of choices pressing in, remember Solomon's prayer for an understanding heart. You too can pause, breathe, and ask God to guide your steps with clarity and calm. Picture this. The world rushes around you with flashing lights, endless headlines, and opinions tumbling over one another. Yet within you there is a still place, a sanctuary where wisdom can dwell. That sanctuary is built not on endless information, but on trust, reverence, and quiet discernment. This is Solomon's gift to you, and it is waiting patiently, like a treasure hidden in plain sight. As we move further into his story, we will see how his wisdom touches on wealth, relationships, and the search for meaning. But even now, in this first glimpse of his life, we already find what our weary hearts need most: the assurance that clarity is possible, that peace can be found, and that wisdom still speaks, even in the noise of modern life. So let us hold on to this thought. Wisdom is timeless. It guided kings and shepherds, prophets, and people of every age. And it can guide you as well, through the endless scrolling, through the restless nights, through the choices that weigh on your heart. Solomon's wisdom is not locked away in the past. It is alive, waiting to be heard, ready to bring calm to your journey today. The name of Solomon became a symbol of wisdom in every corner of the ancient world. Travelers spoke of him as though he were more than a king, almost as if he carried within him a light that could not be hidden. His wisdom was not confined to matters of judgment in his court. It stretched into poetry, architecture, philosophy, and the ordering of daily life. The scriptures describe how he spoke about the plants of the earth, from the mighty cedars of Lebanon to the smallest hyssop that grows out of a wall. He understood the creatures of the land, the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea. It was said that nothing escaped his observation, and nothing was too small for his reflection. Because of this, leaders from distant kingdoms journeyed for weeks, even months, across deserts and seas, simply to sit before him and hear his words. Among them was the Queen of Sheba, whose story remains one of the most vivid testaments to his reputation. She came not because of idle curiosity, but because Solomon's name had become so great that it stirred wonder in her heart. She longed to test his understanding with difficult questions, puzzles that had confounded others. When she arrived in Jerusalem, she found that his wisdom was greater than she had even imagined. The answers he gave were not only clever, but filled with insight that touched the deeper truths of life. She marveled at the order of his palace, the richness of his table, the clothing of his attendants, and the way in which he carried himself as both a ruler and a servant of God. Her visit spread his fame even further, confirming that his wisdom was more than rumor. It was real, tangible, and transformative. This extraordinary reputation did not arise overnight. It was rooted in the prayer he had made at the very beginning of his reign, when God appeared to him in a dream and offered him anything he desired. Rather than asking for wealth or long life or the defeat of his enemies, Solomon asked for a discerning heart, that he might govern the people with justice. God honored this request, and with it, Solomon was given both wisdom and blessings beyond measure. The choice he made that night revealed something profound. He valued understanding above riches, discernment above glory, and wisdom above power. In this choice, we already see why his life matters to us today. Modern culture often tells us to chase success, wealth, and recognition. Yet Solomon's story reminds us that wisdom is a greater treasure than all of these, because it shapes not only what we have, but who we become. A wise heart can guide us through confusion, lead us to peace, and guard us from paths that appear bright but end in sorrow. Solomon's wisdom was not locked away in grand halls or inscribed only for kings. It was shared through proverbs and songs, simple sayings that carried profound meaning for ordinary people. Many of these proverbs remain with us even now, lines of scripture that echo across generations. They speak of honesty, humility, diligence, kindness, and trust in God. They remind us that wisdom is not found in chasing after every desire, but in walking steadily, with reverence for the one who holds all knowledge. Think of the book of Proverbs as a treasure chest left open for us. Each saying is like a jewel, small but shining, able to guide us in daily life. Consider the words, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." This is not only an instruction for the past, it is a reminder for us in a world overflowing with self-help advice and conflicting voices. It tells us that real clarity comes not from leaning only on our limited perspective, but from placing our trust in God's greater wisdom. Consider also the proverb, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." How fitting this is in our modern times, when conversations are often filled with quick replies and heated exchanges. Solomon saw that gentleness carries more strength than harshness, that patience diffuses tension in a way that aggression never can. His words remind us that wisdom is not loud or showy, but quiet and enduring. And then there are his reflections in Ecclesiastes, where he looked back over his life and considered the meaning of all he had seen. Though he had wealth, achievements, and fame, he realized that many pursuits are like chasing after the wind. They bring only momentary satisfaction before slipping away. This realization is as timely now as it was then. In an age of constant striving, where people chase after success and feel the exhaustion of never reaching enough, Solomon's voice calls us back to simplicity, to the joy of daily bread, the beauty of relationships, and the reverence of walking humbly with God. If we pause to notice the shape of his wisdom, we find that it weaves through every part of life. It is practical, offering guidance for work, family, and friendship. It is spiritual, reminding us that reverence for God is the beginning of understanding. It is reflective, helping us see the fleeting nature of worldly pursuits. And it is enduring, reaching across the centuries to touch hearts that long for clarity and peace. Now think of how this applies to modern life. We are often told that the answers to our struggles lie in gathering more information. If we only research more, scroll more, and consume more advice, then we will know what to do. But Solomon shows us a different path. Wisdom is not simply the gathering of facts. It is the ability to discern which facts matter, to see beyond appearances, and to align our choices with deeper truth. In our age, we wrestle with decision fatigue, the endless pressure of choosing among countless options. From the smallest choices, like what to watch or which product to buy, to the largest ones, like career and relationships, the sheer volume of options can paralyze us. Solomon's example teaches us that wisdom is not about weighing every possibility endlessly, but about cultivating a heart that seeks what is right, true, and good. Once that heart is formed, many decisions become clear, because they are guided by principles rather than noise. We also live in an age of influence, where voices clamor for our attention and persuade us toward their way of thinking. In Solomon's time, too, voices filled the court advisors, officials, and foreign envoys. Yet his reputation was built on discernment, on knowing how to listen deeply, how to test motives, and how to arrive at truth even when deception was near. This same gift is needed today, for though the setting has changed, the challenge remains. We must learn to hear beyond the surface, to notice what is genuine and what is false, and to trust in wisdom rather than popularity. The Queen of Sheba's awe at Solomon's wisdom shows us another lesson. Wisdom has the power to inspire, to draw people together, and to create peace. She came with questions, and she left with reverence, recognizing that Solomon's insight was not of human origin alone, but a gift from God. In the same way, when we walk with wisdom in our own lives, people notice. Our calm presence, our fair judgments, our gentle words, these create ripples that touch others, offering stability in a restless world. It is also important to see that Solomon's wisdom was not abstract. It was lived. He built the temple, a place of worship that stood as a symbol of God's dwelling among his people. He organized his kingdom with fairness, ensuring that justice was upheld. His decisions in court preserved life and truth. This teaches us that wisdom is not merely thinking deeply, but acting rightly. It is not confined to study, but expressed in the way we live, work, and care for others. In setting the stage for how Solomon's wisdom applies today, we begin to see that it is both ancient and modern. Ancient because it was born in a time long past, in the quiet halls of Jerusalem. Modern because its essence speaks directly into our struggles with choice, confusion, and meaning. His story shows that wisdom is not a relic, but a living principle that continues to guide hearts across centuries. As we continue, we will look more closely at how Solomon's discernment offers guidance in the age of artificial intelligence, where truth and falsehood intertwine in new and challenging ways. But for now, let us rest in the knowledge that wisdom itself is timeless. It is as real and needed today as it was in Solomon's day. And by drawing near to his story, we draw near to the still waters of understanding, where clarity replaces confusion and peace takes the place of unrest. When we look at Solomon's wisdom through the lens of our own time, we begin to sense how relevant it is for the struggles we face every day. His reputation as a man of unparalleled understanding sets the stage for us to carry his insights into challenges that he himself could never have imagined, yet challenges that reveal the same human heart he knew so well. Consider the world we live in, filled with voices that reach us at all hours. Social media platforms draw us in with endless streams of opinions, arguments, images, and updates. What begins as a moment of connection can quickly become a tide of comparison, envy, and restlessness. The light of a screen promises comfort, but often delivers fatigue, pulling us deeper into cycles of distraction. In Solomon's day, people gathered in courts or marketplaces to share words and stories. In our time, those gatherings are multiplied across millions of screens, each one inviting us to listen, to respond, to take sides. The sheer volume of voices can leave us feeling weary, unable to tell which words bring truth and which only stir division. This is what many describe as social media toxicity. It is the subtle erosion of peace that comes from endless exposure to negativity, conflict, and comparison. A single scroll can carry us from joy to anger, from laughter to doubt, from inspiration to despair. The constant shifting of emotions leaves the soul unsettled. Solomon once wrote that an anxious heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. His proverb reminds us that words carry great power, and in our digital world, those words travel farther and faster than ever before. When harshness fills our feed, the weight grows heavy. When kindness is shared, it can shine like a lamp in darkness. The challenge, then, is to discern what to allow into the heart and what to let pass by. Just as Solomon sat as judge over disputes, weighing truth against deception, we too must learn how to judge what enters our eyes and ears through screens. Not every voice deserves our attention. Not every argument needs our reply. Wisdom invites us to be selective, to guard our hearts against the bitterness that spreads so quickly online, and to nurture instead the gentle words that lift us up. Another struggle of modern life lies in the constant pursuit of purpose. The world offers countless definitions of success. Some say it lies in wealth, others in fame, others in personal freedom. Advertisements whisper that we will be fulfilled if we buy more, achieve more, or experience more. Yet many discover, after chasing these dreams, that the satisfaction they offer is fleeting. The more we strive, the more distant contentment seems to become. Solomon knew this struggle well. In Ecclesiastes, he wrote of great projects he undertook, houses he built, Gardens he planted, treasures he gathered, pleasures he enjoyed. Yet after all these pursuits he concluded that they were meaningless, like chasing after the wind. His honesty is striking. He had reached heights of success beyond imagination, yet he confessed that none of it brought lasting peace. Instead, he pointed toward a deeper truth, that life gains meaning not from possessions or achievements, but from recognizing God's presence and enjoying the simple gifts he provides. This speaks directly into the chaos of our time. In a world that demands more and more of us, Solomon's reflections give permission to rest. They tell us that it is enough to find joy in small moments, in relationships, in daily bread, in quiet reverence for the Creator. They invite us to lay down the burden of comparison and to step away from the restless chase for status. Think also of decision fatigue, a struggle that quietly shapes the rhythm of modern life. From the moment the day begins, choices press upon us. What to wear, what to eat, which tasks to prioritize, how to respond to messages, which opportunities to pursue. By evening the mind feels drained, not because of one great decision, but because of the endless stream of small ones. Solomon would understand this weariness, for he himself bore the weight of countless decisions as king. Yet his prayer for an understanding heart shows us how he carried that burden. He did not rely only on his own reasoning, but sought wisdom from God, who sees the end from the beginning. In our own lives, this means we can approach decisions not as isolated struggles, but as moments to pause, to breathe, and to ask for guidance. Instead of being pulled into anxiety by the sheer number of choices, we can return to principles that Solomon himself cherished: honesty, humility, patience, and trust in God. These values act as signposts, narrowing the path and easing the burden. The pace of modern life also stirs another challenge: the loss of quiet. In Solomon's writings we find a man who valued reflection, who looked at the patterns of nature, the flight of birds, the growth of plants, and drew wisdom from them. He saw lessons in the ant's diligence, in the fleeting beauty of flowers, in the turning of seasons. His eyes were open to the silent teachers of creation. Yet, in our time, silence itself is rare. Constant noise surrounds us, whether from traffic, devices, or the endless hum of obligations. To pause and notice is an act of courage. To listen deeply is a choice few make. This loss of quiet makes it harder to hear the gentle voice of wisdom. The soul needs stillness to reflect, just as Solomon once looked upon the world around him and found meaning in its simplicity. Without silence, we risk becoming shallow, pulled along by currents we do not understand. But with silence, even a few minutes of it, we create space for discernment. We give our hearts room to breathe, to hear what is true, and to let go of what is not. There is also the matter of identity in a fragmented world. Many people today struggle to know who they truly are. Online spaces allow us to present polished versions of ourselves. Yet behind the screens many feel lonely, uncertain, or unseen. The tension between appearance and reality grows heavy. Solomon knew the danger of building identity on shifting ground. He saw that human pride and vanity fade quickly, that appearances are fleeting, but that character endures. His wisdom calls us back to integrity, to being whole within ourselves, to living honestly rather than projecting endlessly. As we prepare to look more closely at Solomon's teachings, it is important to see how these modern struggles, social media, conflict, endless decision-making, the chase for purpose, the loss of quiet, the question of identity all find echoes in the insights he left behind. His words are not locked in the past. They are living guides, able to shed light on the challenges we face daily. We may not live in palaces or preside over kingdoms, but we do navigate our own realms, our families, our friendships, our workplaces, our communities. In each of these spaces, wisdom is as necessary now as it was in Jerusalem long ago. The principles Solomon valued: discernment, humility, reverence, compassion, are still the foundations of a meaningful life. And so, as we move forward, we will draw these ancient insights into our modern context. We will see how Solomon's ability to discern truth can help us sift through the flood of misinformation in the age of artificial intelligence. We will explore how his reflections on wealth and contentment can anchor us in a culture that glorifies endless striving. We will listen to his guidance on relationships and loyalty, applying it to the unique struggles of our time. And finally, we will reflect with him on purpose and legacy, discovering how his search for meaning mirrors our own. For now, it is enough to recognize that Solomon's wisdom is not distant. It is here, ready to walk with us through the most pressing struggles of modern life. His voice calls us to look past the noise, to see what is lasting, and to hold on to the truths that bring peace. The question of discernment has always been central to human life. In ancient Jerusalem, King Solomon faced a moment that would forever define his reputation. Two women came before him, each holding a desperate claim. A child had been born, and in the night one mother's baby had tragically died. Each woman insisted that the living child was hers. No witnesses could be brought forth, no proof existed, and emotions were heavy in the air. The court was hushed, and all eyes turned to the young king whose throne had not yet been tested in so public a way. Solomon could not rely on evidence, because there was none. He had to reach beyond appearances and into the deeper fabric of truth. He called for a sword. The order stunned everyone present. "Divide the living child in two," he declared. To many, the words seemed cruel, almost unthinkable. Yet the king was not motivated by cruelty. He was drawing out the real mother's heart. At once, one woman cried out, pleading that the child be given to the other woman, as long as the infant's life would be spared. The other woman remained silent or indifferent. In that moment, Solomon knew. Truth revealed itself not through data, not through argument, but through compassion. He ordered that the baby be given to the woman who pleaded for its life, declaring her the true mother. This story has echoed across millennia because it shows how discernment often requires more than logic. It requires wisdom that sees beyond the surface, wisdom that listens for the deeper voice of sincerity and love. And it is precisely this kind of discernment that feels so urgent in our own age, when the flood of information surrounds us from the moment we open our eyes until the moment we close them at night. We live in an era of machines that can generate words, pictures, and even voices that sound real. Artificial intelligence creates articles that appear thoughtful, images that appear authentic, and conversations that feel genuine. Yet, beneath the polished surface may lie distortions, fabrications, or subtle manipulations. Just as Solomon faced two voices, each claiming truth, we now face countless digital voices, each asking for our trust. The challenge is not unlike his, though the tools have changed. We must learn how to discern. Solomon's wisdom in that judgment hinged on one principle: do not merely listen to words, watch for the heart that lies beneath. When we read something online or encounter a message that stirs us, we are invited to pause. Does this content reflect care, compassion, and integrity, or does it provoke fear, division, and haste? The true mother revealed herself through love. In the same way, truth often carries the scent of humility, patience, and genuine concern. Falsehood, on the other hand, frequently reveals itself through agitation and indifference. In the digital world, information does not come to us in quiet courtrooms. It comes through headlines designed to catch the eye, images tailored to stir emotion, and endless streams of content that arrive faster than we can process. This is where Solomon's example becomes invaluable. He did not react in panic. He created a moment of stillness. He introduced a test that revealed what could not be seen otherwise. That calm courage is something we can carry into our own daily encounters with information. When we see a story shared online, rather than reacting instantly, we can slow ourselves. What if we pause, as Solomon paused? What if we wait long enough to see what lies beneath the words? We can ask questions. Who benefits if I believe this? Does this bring life and compassion, or does it divide and harm? Solomon knew that true love could not remain silent when life was at stake. In the same way, truth has qualities that falsehood cannot mimic perfectly. Artificial intelligence has opened remarkable possibilities, yet it has also brought confusion. Articles can be generated in moments that sound convincing but lack depth. Photographs can be altered until reality and invention blur together. Even voices can be imitated so closely that trust is shaken. In such an age, wisdom requires more than consuming content. It requires a kind of inner testing, a deliberate examination, much like Solomon's call for the sword. He did not accept the women's claims at face value. He introduced a measure that revealed character. Likewise, we must learn to create our own measures. For some, this means checking the source before believing a statement. For others, it means reading more than one perspective, rather than assuming the first headline contains the full story. It also means noticing how something makes us feel. If a piece of information instantly inflames anger or fear, perhaps we should pause before passing it along. Wisdom says, wait, examine, see what lies beneath. Consider how quickly a false report can spread in the digital age. A rumor can race across the globe in seconds, carried by clicks and shares. By the time the truth surfaces, harm has already been done. Solomon's judgment reminds us that discernment is not passive. It requires action. He stepped forward with a test that clarified the truth. In our world, the equivalent action may be as simple as researching before sharing, or as careful as teaching our children how to question digital content without falling into cynicism. The calm strength of Solomon was his ability to see human motives, not just human words. Machines can mimic sentences, but they cannot embody sincerity. An image can be generated to look real, but it cannot carry the lived history of a genuine photograph. A voice can be reproduced, but it lacks the depth of a soul. Discernment today means remembering this distinction. It means valuing authenticity over speed, depth over surface, and compassion over reaction. We might also reflect on how Solomon himself prepared for wisdom. He asked God not for riches, nor for long life, but for an understanding heart to govern his people well. The request itself reveals humility. He acknowledged his limits. He knew he needed help beyond himself. In our own lives, as we face the torrent of digital information, humility is still essential. To admit that we cannot instantly know all truth is to open the way for careful discernment. In practice, this humility can look like refusing to comment until we have listened fully. It can look like being willing to say, "I do not know yet. I need to look closer." This posture stands in contrast to the constant pressure to react instantly. Wisdom requires space, and space requires courage to resist the crowd's urgency. Imagine again the quiet court where Solomon sat today. The room is tense. Emotions swirl, yet he remains steady, not swept away by either claim. That steadiness is the gift we need in the age of AI. We can cultivate it by slowing down our own consumption, by choosing carefully what voices we allow to shape us, and by nurturing patience. Even more, discernment is not only about avoiding deception, it is also about recognizing what nourishes us. Solomon did not only uncover the lie, he also restored life by giving the child to the true mother. In our own choices, discernment means asking, what brings life to me and to others? What strengthens compassion, integrity, and joy? When we can identify these qualities, we are less easily swayed by artificial or shallow imitations. This journey of discernment may feel daunting in a world of endless screens, but wisdom assures us it is possible. We may not hold Solomon's throne, yet each of us holds the responsibility of choosing what to believe, what to share, and what to treasure in our minds. By practicing his calm attentiveness, his courage to test, and his reliance on deeper values, we too can cut through the noise. As technology advances, the challenges will continue. New forms of deception will arise, just as new tools for truth will be created. But the principle remains unchanged. The wisest king of Israel showed that discernment is not merely about cleverness. It is about the heart. Love revealed the true mother. Compassion pointed the way to truth. And even now, in an age of algorithms and automation, those same qualities shine like a compass. The task is not only intellectual but spiritual. Discernment requires cultivating a quiet place within, where we can hear the gentle promptings of conscience. Just as Solomon turned to God for understanding, we too can turn inward, asking for clarity, asking for patience, and trusting that truth will emerge when we seek it with sincerity. By carrying this wisdom into our daily encounters with information, we honor the example of Solomon. We learn to see beyond polished surfaces, beyond loud voices, into the heart of the matter. We find that discernment is not outdated, nor is it impossible in the modern world. Rather, it is more needed than ever, and the path to it has already been shown. The ancient world, though distant in time, offers principles that remain surprisingly relevant to evaluating information in the modern era. Solomon's wisdom was rooted in observation, patience, and careful judgment. He listened before speaking, weighed evidence before deciding, and sought to understand motives as well as facts. These habits of mind provide a timeless model for navigating the constant flood of digital content we encounter today. Critical thinking begins with the recognition that not everything presented to us is equally valuable or trustworthy. Solomon knew that appearances could be deceiving, that words could mislead, and that even the most convincing testimony might hide falsehood. The court cases he presided over required him to consider not just what was said, but who spoke it, why they spoke it, and what the consequences of belief might be. This same method can guide our modern minds as we navigate news feeds, social media posts, and AI-generated content. A first step in cultivating this wisdom is the creation of personal filters. Just as Solomon did not respond impulsively to the claims of the two mothers, modern readers can train themselves to pause and examine the sources of information before accepting it as true. Who authored this piece? What is their reputation? Do they provide evidence for their statements, or are their claims largely opinion or speculation? The goal is not cynicism, but discernment, a thoughtful separation between reliable insights and content that may mislead or manipulate. Beyond evaluating authorship, it is helpful to consider the context of information. In Solomon's time, messages traveled through human networks, letters, emissaries, conversations. The reliability of information often depended on the credibility of the messenger and the conditions under which it was transmitted. Today, the same principle applies, only in a digital form. AI-generated content can be created with speed and precision, but it lacks the context and accountability that accompany human testimony. Understanding context helps us distinguish between content that informs and content that simply distracts. Another principle of critical thinking rooted in Solomon's wisdom is patience. He never rushed judgment. Even in moments of apparent urgency, he sought to observe the underlying truths carefully. In the digital age, the pressure to react quickly, liking, sharing, commenting, can undermine clarity. By allowing ourselves the space to pause, reflect, and analyze, we create room for judgment that is thoughtful rather than impulsive. This approach transforms the act of consuming information from a reactive habit into an intentional practice. Patterns of reasoning also offer guidance. Solomon was skilled at identifying inconsistencies and contradictions in testimony. Similarly, evaluating digital content benefits from careful attention to patterns. Does this source consistently provide accurate information, or are there repeated errors? Are claims supported by evidence, or are they presented in a way that appeals mainly to emotion? Recognizing patterns helps build a mental map of reliability, allowing discernment to function as a kind of internal compass. Observation of human motives remains a critical tool. Solomon's insight into character allowed him to judge more than the words spoken. He understood the desires and fears that shaped the behavior of others. Today, information is often produced with underlying intentions: advertising, political persuasion, social influence. Developing awareness of these motives provides a filter through which content can be more accurately assessed. Questions like, "Who benefits from my belief?" or "Is this content intended to provoke or inform?" allow the reader to see beyond the immediate presentation and into the purpose behind it. The cultivation of humility complements this approach. Solomon's wisdom began with the acknowledgement that understanding is a gift, not a product of human cleverness alone. By recognizing our own limits in evaluating information, we create openness to verification, to correction, and to learning from reliable sources. Humility tempers the impulse to react impulsively and fosters a mindset attentive to truth rather than appearance. Practical strategies emerge naturally from these ancient principles. One effective approach is cross-referencing. Before accepting a claim, check multiple reputable sources. Consistency across independent sources increases reliability, while contradictions signal the need for caution. In Solomon's court, corroborating testimony was essential. Today, the digital equivalent serves the same purpose, allowing us to triangulate truth in a sea of information. Another strategy is mindful skepticism. This does not mean doubting everything automatically, but asking thoughtful questions. Does this information align with established knowledge? Are there gaps in evidence? Does it evoke an emotional reaction designed to distract from careful evaluation? By approaching content with a curious but discerning mind, we engage the critical faculties that Solomon exemplified. Organization of information also matters. Just as Solomon relied on structured thought to make complex decisions, modern readers benefit from keeping track of sources, notes, and reflections. Whether through digital tools or simple notebooks, creating a record of observations allows patterns to emerge and helps prevent repeated mistakes. It transforms the overwhelming volume of information into manageable, analyzable material. Equally important is the cultivation of selective attention. Solomon's discernment involved focusing on what mattered most, ignoring distractions that could cloud judgment. In the digital era, attention is a precious resource. By consciously deciding which platforms, voices, or topics to engage with, we prevent overload and maintain mental clarity. This is not avoidance, but intentional curation, allowing focus on the information that contributes to understanding and growth. Critical thinking also involves reflection on consequences. Solomon considered not just immediate outcomes, but the broader impact of decisions on lives and relationships. Similarly, evaluating information today benefits from reflection on its potential effects. Sharing a rumor hastily can harm reputations and relationships. Believing misleading content can shape decisions in ways that may not align with long-term well-being. Thoughtful evaluation includes consideration of these ripple effects. An additional layer, involves emotional awareness. Solomon's judgment revealed a keen sensitivity to human emotion, distinguishing between self-interest and genuine care. In modern life, recognizing how our own emotions influence perception is essential. Anger, fear, or desire can make content seem more convincing than it truly island. By monitoring emotional responses, we create a buffer that allows reason to operate alongside feeling, enhancing discernment. The practice of writing or verbalizing reasoning also enhances critical thinking. Solomon's wisdom was not only in judgment but in articulation. Explaining decisions, reasoning through a dilemma, or discussing observations with others clarifies thought. In a digital world filled with fleeting statements and short-form media, taking the time to articulate understanding strengthens both memory and judgment. Education in the habits of verification reinforces these principles. Solomon invested in learning from observation, from reading, and from listening to diverse voices. Modern readers can adopt the same approach, seeking reputable courses, guides, and experts to develop skills in evaluating sources, understanding bias, and recognizing misinformation. Lifelong learning is not merely an aspiration. It is a practical tool in navigating the complexities of information in our time. It is important to remember that discernment is not a solitary pursuit. Just as Solomon relied on advisors and witnesses, modern evaluation benefits from community. Engaging with trusted peers, mentors, or expert networks provides additional perspectives and helps prevent blind spots. Collaboration enhances judgment and ensures that conclusions are more robust and reliable. Simplicity is another guiding principle. Solomon often reduced complex situations to core truths. In our context, distilling information to its essential points allows us to focus on what is most meaningful and verifiable. By stripping away noise, sensationalism, and irrelevant details, we see the substance clearly, much as Solomon saw the life of the child behind the conflict. Finally, integrating discernment into daily habits solidifies the practice. Solomon's wisdom was not episodic. It was woven into every aspect of life, from governance to personal reflection. Similarly, cultivating filters for digital content requires consistency. Daily reflection, conscious evaluation, and attention to principles of truth, integrity, and compassion form the backbone of critical thinking that is resilient, enduring, and life-enhancing. Through these practices, the wisdom of Solomon becomes a living guide. It transforms encounters with information from potential confusion into opportunities for clarity. Each post, each article, each piece of AI-generated content becomes a chance to exercise judgment, to strengthen understanding, and to cultivate discernment. In this way, ancient principles provide tools not only for avoiding falsehood, but for seeking truth that enriches thought, nurtures relationships, and anchors life in stability and meaning. The challenges of modern information are immense, yet the foundation for navigating them has already been laid. Solomon's life exemplifies a careful balance of observation, humility, patience, and reflection. His principles are not abstract ideals but practical habits. By adopting these strategies in evaluating sources, developing personal filters, and exercising deliberate judgment, we can maintain clarity, protect our minds from distortion, and cultivate a way of engaging with information that is both wise and humane. In the midst of the countless messages, notifications, and updates that flood the modern world, the ability to cut through the noise becomes not just a convenience, but a necessity. Solomon, with his extraordinary clarity of mind, provides timeless guidance for this task. He exemplified an approach that combined observation, discernment, and steady judgment. By reflecting on the ways he navigated complex human situations, we can extract practical strategies that bring calm, clarity, and intentionality to our decisions today. One essential principle is the prioritization of what truly matters. Solomon recognized that not every dispute required his direct intervention, and not every detail of life warranted equal attention. Similarly, in contemporary life, much of the content vying for our attention is trivial or distracting. Setting clear priorities allows us to focus on information and decisions that affect our well-being, relationships, and long-term goals. This involves asking questions such as, what is genuinely important in this moment? Will engaging with this material contribute to growth, understanding, or peace? By filtering out what is non-essential, we reduce mental clutter and create space for meaningful thought. Closely tied to prioritization is the practice of intentional time management. Solomon's judgments were not rushed, yet they were timely. He understood the rhythm of reflection and action, knowing when to listen, when to pause, and when to decide. In the digital age, intentionality means creating boundaries around how we consume information, limiting the number of hours spent scrolling social media, scheduling focused periods for reading and research, and setting aside quiet time for reflection all contribute to informed decision-making. This structured approach mirrors the balance Solomon maintained between observation and judgment. Another practical approach involves the careful use of questioning. Solomon's clarity came in part from his ability to ask the right questions, probing beneath the surface of appearances to uncover underlying truth. In modern life, adopting this habit can transform the way we process information. Rather than accepting a statement at face value, we can ask, what evidence supports this? What might be missing from this perspective? Could there be bias or ulterior motives at play? Formulating thoughtful questions allows us to engage actively rather than passively, converting the flood of content into an opportunity for discernment. The cultivation of patience is equally vital. Solomon did not rush to judgment in the famous case of the two mothers. He created a pause that revealed truth. In the present day, it is easy to feel compelled to react instantly to every headline, notification, or post. Practicing patience before responding, sharing, or forming an opinion creates the conditions for clarity. Waiting even a few minutes or longer provides distance from emotional reactions and allows reason and judgment to operate more effectively. Simplifying complex information is another strategy inspired by Solomon's clarity. He could see the core truth within intricate disputes. Similarly, when faced with layers of analysis, contrasting reports, or technical explanations, it is helpful to distill the essential points. Summarizing information in clear, concise terms allows the mind to comprehend and evaluate content more effectively. This does not mean reducing important details, but rather understanding the central message before attending to nuance. Awareness of cognitive biases also plays a role in making informed decisions. Solomon understood human motives and tendencies, recognizing the influence of pride, envy, and desire. In modern life, biases can distort perception and judgment, leading to misinterpretation or hasty conclusions. By acknowledging tendencies toward confirmation bias, emotional reasoning, or groupthink, we create an opportunity to counteract them intentionally. Techniques such as considering alternative viewpoints, reflecting on personal motivations, and pausing to evaluate emotional responses enhance clarity and reduce error. Deliberate reflection on consequences mirrors Solomon's approach to judgment. He was mindful not only of the immediate outcome but of the ripple effects his decisions would have on families, communities, and justice itself. Similarly, evaluating potential consequences before making choices ensures that decisions are responsible, ethical, and aligned with long-term goals. Whether choosing to share information, invest time, or act on advice, considering the broader impact guides action toward outcomes that are constructive rather than harmful. Recording and organizing observations also supports clarity. Solomon likely retained mental records of patterns, past cases, and human behavior, which informed his decisions. Today, we can employ tools such as journals, digital notes, or organized reading lists to track sources, reflections, and insights. Keeping this structured record allows patterns to emerge over time, strengthens memory, and provides a reference when faced with complex choices. Another principle involves seeking counsel when appropriate. Solomon did not rule in isolation. He benefited from advisors, witnesses, and divine guidance. In the modern context, consulting experts, trusted mentors, or informed communities adds layers of insight that our individual judgment might miss. Dialogue enhances understanding, provides checks against error, and fosters more balanced decisions. Minimizing distractions is equally critical. Solomon's ability to focus amidst complex disputes demonstrates the value of undivided attention. In a world of constant notifications, multitasking, and competing priorities, creating environments free from interruptions enhances the quality of our thinking. Practices such as dedicated reading spaces, turning off alerts, and structured focus periods mimic the clarity Solomon exhibited in his judgments. Maintaining balance between emotion and reason strengthens decision-making. Solomon's judgments were guided not solely by intellect, but by a harmonious integration of insight and empathy. When evaluating information, emotions can inform our values and priorities, but they should not dominate judgment. Cultivating self-awareness allows us to recognize when feelings are influencing perception and to respond in a measured, thoughtful manner. Filtering sources carefully is another practical tip. Solomon relied on testimony from credible witnesses and direct observation. Similarly, modern discernment benefits from identifying and consistently using reliable sources of information. Peer-reviewed research, reputable news outlets, and authoritative experts provide a foundation of credibility. Cross-referencing multiple sources further strengthens understanding. reducing reliance on potentially misleading or superficial content. Mindful consumption complements filtering. Solomon's clarity reflected intentional engagement rather than passive absorption. By consciously choosing what to read, watch, or listen to, and by limiting exposure to content that promotes fear, division, or distraction, we preserve mental clarity and maintain focus on meaningful, constructive knowledge. Prioritizing questions of significance is essential. Not all information is equally relevant. Solomon could see the core of disputes, distinguishing what mattered most in determining truth and justice. In daily life, this principle translates into asking, which decisions have lasting impact? Which information directly affects personal or professional goals, well-being, or moral responsibility? By focusing on what is essential, we conserve energy for choices that truly matter. Integrating regular reflection deepens understanding. Solomon spent time contemplating the natural world, human behavior, and divine principles, drawing lessons that inform decisions. Likewise, setting aside moments for reflection, meditation, or quiet study strengthens judgment, reinforces patterns of insight, and connects decisions to enduring values rather than immediate pressures. Adopting incremental action is another element. Solomon's clarity was evident not only in immediate judgments, but in a pattern of consistently thoughtful decisions over time. In modern life, rather than attempting to resolve every challenge at once, taking measured steps based on considered evaluation allows for learning, adaptation, and refinement. Small, deliberate choices accumulate into wiser outcomes. A final guiding strategy is the practice of humility in knowledge. Solomon's clarity was grounded in the understanding that human wisdom is limited and must be complemented by observation, reflection, and reliance on higher principles. Recognizing the limits of what we know encourages continued learning, openness to correction, and a thoughtful approach to information. When these principles are applied collectively, they form a practical framework for cutting through the noise. Prioritization, patience, questioning, reflection, careful source selection, filtering, focused attention, consultation with trusted voices, emotional awareness, and humility all work together to create a disciplined, resilient approach to modern decision-making. Just as Solomon navigated complex disputes with calm, insight, and ethical clarity, so too can we navigate the turbulent seas of information and choice with confidence and composure. This clarity transforms daily interactions with digital content from reactive overwhelm to deliberate engagement. Each headline, message, or post becomes an opportunity to exercise judgment, practice discernment, and cultivate wisdom. By integrating these practical strategies into routine life, the overwhelming flood of information is transformed into a manageable flow, a source of learning rather than anxiety, a guide rather than a distraction. Solomon's life was one of extraordinary abundance. He inherited a kingdom that was already flourishing, yet he expanded it to new heights of prosperity. Gold, silver, precious stones, and luxurious materials filled the palace and the treasury. Trade routes connected his realm to distant lands, bringing exotic goods and resources that were the envy of neighboring kingdoms. In our modern understanding, this might seem like the ultimate expression of success, wealth accumulated beyond measure, power at one's fingertips, and prestige recognized across the known world. Yet Solomon's reflections reveal a more complex and nuanced view, a perspective that transcends mere accumulation and points toward true contentment. In his writings, especially in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon candidly examines the pursuit of wealth. He observes that riches, while impressive, cannot guarantee lasting satisfaction. Accumulation of material goods, in his words, can become a vanity, a chasing after wind. The endless desire for more, the constant striving to acquire possessions, often leads to fatigue, dissatisfaction, and a sense of emptiness. This insight resonates strongly in contemporary culture, where consumerism and hustle culture encourage continuous effort to earn, spend, and achieve recognition. The parallels are striking. The modern world prizes acquisition and status, yet many who achieve these goals still report feelings of burnout, anxiety, and a lack of fulfillment. Solomon's reflections provide a counterpoint to this narrative. He does not condemn wealth in itself, recognizing that prosperity can bring comfort, security, and opportunities for generosity. However, he emphasizes moderation, awareness, and the mindful use of resources. Wealth, he suggests, should be a tool for living well, not an end in itself. The distinction is subtle but critical. In our world, it is easy to equate success with the accumulation of material goods, as though achievement were measured solely by bank accounts or visible markers of status. Solomon invites a different approach, one where the value of prosperity is measured by its contribution to a meaningful and balanced life. Contentment, according to Solomon, arises from appreciating what one has and finding satisfaction in the simple and essential aspects of life. Food, rest, companionship, and work undertaken with purpose all hold value when enjoyed without obsessive longing for more. He observes that labor itself, when approached with diligence and integrity, brings a quiet joy. The process of working, contributing, and engaging in daily responsibilities can be fulfilling, not just the outcomes or rewards. This perspective contrasts sharply with the relentless pace of modern hustle culture, where activity is often measured by output, efficiency, and recognition, rather than by intrinsic value or personal satisfaction. Generosity and stewardship are also central to Solomon's understanding of wealth. He recognizes that material abundance offers the opportunity to provide for others, to create community well-being, and to engage in acts of kindness. In contrast, a singular focus on accumulation can isolate, creating a narrow pursuit of personal gain that overlooks broader responsibilities and relationships. Solomon's perspective encourages the use of wealth not as a symbol of superiority, but as a means to enrich life itself and the lives of others. In this way, prosperity becomes intertwined with purpose, moral reflection, and social harmony. The contrast between appearance and reality is another theme Solomon explores. Riches may impress others and convey status, yet the inner experience of wealth is often different from its outward display. In modern terms, Social media frequently presents curated images of success, luxury possessions, exotic vacations, and carefully staged moments of achievement. Yet the underlying experience may involve stress, insecurity, and a constant pressure to maintain appearances. Solomon's reflections suggest that true wealth is less about external perception and more about internal peace and contentment. It is measured not by applause or envy, but by the ability to live fully, appreciate what is present, and navigate life with wisdom. Another important lesson lies in the management of ambition. Solomon achieved more than almost any contemporary king, yet he recognized the limitations and impermanence of human pursuits. Ambition itself is not condemned. It can drive innovation, leadership, and personal growth. However, unchecked ambition, particularly when driven by comparison, fear, or the desire to impress others, can lead to exhaustion and disillusionment. Solomon's writings encourage a reflective approach, balancing aspiration with a clear understanding of one's values, priorities, and limits. He also emphasizes the importance of perspective. The pursuit of wealth alone cannot address the deeper questions of existence, meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. Solomon notes that even immense riches cannot compensate for loss, grief, or the passing of time. Similarly, in contemporary life, financial success cannot fully resolve the challenges of emotional well-being, relationships, or the search for significance. Awareness of these limits fosters humility, gratitude, and careful attention to what truly matters. Solomon's approach can be translated into practical guidance for modern living, appreciating the sufficiency of what one has, recognizing the value of labor and creativity, exercising generosity, and maintaining perspective on ambition all contribute to a more balanced and contented life. This does not preclude striving for improvement or seeking financial security, but it frames these efforts within a larger context of well-being and purpose. The clarity lies in understanding that wealth serves life rather than defines it. Modern consumerism often encourages the illusion that happiness is purchased. Advertisements, influencers, and cultural narratives suggest that new possessions, experiences, or achievements are the keys to satisfaction. Solomon's insights remind us that this is not the case. Happiness and contentment arise not solely from acquisition, but from mindful engagement with life, meaningful relationships, and the ethical use of resources. Observing these principles can reduce stress, prevent burnout, and cultivate a deeper sense of fulfillment than the mere pursuit of material success. Work-life balance, a concept frequently discussed in contemporary culture, finds its roots in Solomon's perspective. He recognized the value of labor, but also the necessity of rest, reflection, and enjoyment. Life is richer when work is meaningful, when it is undertaken with integrity, and when it is balanced with leisure, family, and spiritual or personal reflection. Modern readers can draw from this wisdom by structuring their days to honor both productivity and well-being, recognizing that neither extreme constant work or idle indulgence leads to true contentment. The concept of lasting satisfaction extends beyond material comfort. Solomon illustrates that joy, peace, and fulfillment are found in the ordinary, in activities and relationships that are often overlooked amid the pursuit of grandeur. meals shared with loved ones, honest work, quiet contemplation, and the appreciation of beauty in nature or craftsmanship all contribute to enduring satisfaction. These aspects of life remain undervalued in modern societies that prioritize speed, efficiency, and visibility over depth and authenticity. Solomon's reflections also provide guidance on financial prudence. He demonstrates a recognition that resources must be managed thoughtfully, avoiding reckless indulgence while also preventing unnecessary deprivation. Modern parallels include budgeting, strategic planning, and conscious consumption. The emphasis is not austerity for its own sake, but rather a considered approach that aligns resources with values, purpose, and long-term stability. Generosity, when understood as a natural extension of prosperity, enhances personal fulfillment. Solomon encourages sharing abundance, supporting others, and contributing to communal well-being. The act of giving, when thoughtful and consistent, reinforces purpose and creates connections that wealth alone cannot generate. In contemporary terms, this might include philanthropy, mentoring, acts of service, or investment in community initiatives. Such engagement cultivates meaning and strengthens both individual and collective life. A crucial element in Solomon's perspective is awareness of impermanence. He observes that all material wealth is fleeting. The treasures of a kingdom, like personal possessions, will ultimately pass from one generation to the next. Recognition of this impermanence fosters humility, reduces attachment to superficial status, and encourages attention to enduring qualities: integrity, relationships, wisdom, and meaningful contributions. Modern society often obscures this reality with constant novelty and marketing, but Solomon's insights invite reflection on what endures and what fades. Balance emerges as the central theme. Solomon demonstrates that wealth, ambition, labor, and enjoyment each have a place, but none should dominate the entirety of life. He models an approach in which abundance is accompanied by reflection, labor is accompanied by joy, and ambition is tempered by wisdom. This balance allows for well-being that is resilient, ethical, and deeply satisfying. In contrast to the relentless pace of contemporary hustle culture, his example provides a framework for measured, intentional, and meaningful living. Solomon's nuanced view encourages a transformation in perspective. Rather than viewing prosperity solely as an end, it is understood as a means to live fully, care for others, and cultivate lasting satisfaction. The lessons remain profoundly relevant. Moderation, mindful appreciation, ethical management, generosity, perspective, and reflection combine to create a life that is rich, not only in possessions but in purpose and contentment. Through these insights, the contrast with modern culture becomes clear. While consumerism emphasizes accumulation and visibility, Solomon's wisdom emphasizes balance, intention, and fulfillment, rooted in values that endure. In applying this perspective today, one can navigate the pressures of material desire and societal expectation with calm discernment, clarity, and a sense of proportion that protects well-being and nurtures a meaningful life. In his later writings, Solomon spoke with rare honesty about the struggles of human ambition and the endless search for happiness. The book of Ecclesiastes, often considered one of the most profound works in the wisdom tradition, offers a meditation on life's meaning, its fleeting joys, and its deeper sources of fulfillment. While some have interpreted the book as somber or even pessimistic, its true richness lies in its invitation to discern what truly matters. Within its pages, we find timeless guidance for a world where constant busyness, productivity, and achievement dominate, leaving little room for rest or contentment. Solomon begins by observing the repetitive cycles of life. The sun rises and sets, the wind blows from one direction to another, and streams flow into the sea yet never fill it. This imagery captures the rhythm of existence, steady and predictable, yet often unchanging. To him, human striving can feel much the same, an endless cycle of effort without ultimate satisfaction. He concludes with the famous phrase that all is vanity, a chasing after the wind. At first, these words may sound discouraging, but they point to a crucial insight. Pursuing happiness through constant striving, possessions, or recognition alone will not bring lasting peace. The cycle of chasing what seems just out of reach can become exhausting, leaving one depleted and dissatisfied. This insight resonates with the modern world, where the pace of life has accelerated beyond what previous generations could imagine. Technology enables continuous connection. Work crosses boundaries once reserved for rest, and the demands of a 24/7 economy leave little space for pause. Many live with the expectation of being always available, always productive, always striving for more. Yet, as Ecclesiastes reminds us, this endless pursuit without reflection often leads only to weariness. The heart longs for satisfaction, but the cycle of more rarely delivers it. In contrast, Solomon emphasizes the beauty of simple pleasures. He writes of eating bread with gladness, drinking wine with a cheerful heart, and enjoying the labor of one's hands. He reminds us that such experiences are gifts, to be received with gratitude rather than overlooked in the chase for something grander. In modern terms, this can be understood as mindfulness, the practice of being present in ordinary moments, savoring a meal, appreciating companionship, and acknowledging the value of daily work. These joys may seem small compared to ambitious goals, yet they form the foundation of a contented life. One of the striking aspects of Ecclesiastes is its recognition of time. Solomon observes that there is a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to weep and a time to laugh. This poetic passage highlights balance and rhythm, reminding us that life is not meant to be constant striving. Just as the natural world has cycles, so too does human life. To expect constant productivity, constant excitement, or constant growth is to ignore the wisdom of seasons. Rest is as essential as work, reflection as important as action. In the context of burnout, these insights are especially relevant. Burnout arises when the natural cycles of effort and renewal are disrupted, when individuals push themselves without pause, and when rest is viewed as weakness rather than necessity. The 24/7 economy thrives on this disruption, rewarding constant availability and punishing withdrawal. Yet Ecclesiastes calls us to a different perspective, one that honors the necessity of rhythm, acknowledges the limits of human strength, and values rest as a sacred part of life. Solomon also reflects on the futility of endless comparison. He observes that people toil and strive, often motivated by envy of their neighbors. This observation is timeless. In the ancient world, wealth, power, and status were compared between families and kingdoms. Today, social media amplifies this tendency, offering endless opportunities to measure one's life against carefully curated portrayals of others. The result is often dissatisfaction and exhaustion, as individuals push themselves to meet standards that are unrealistic or irrelevant to their true calling. Ecclesiastes cautions against this trap, pointing instead to contentment with one's portion, the recognition that what we have and who we are can be enough. Happiness, Solomon suggests, is not found in chasing grand illusions, but in receiving the present moment as a gift. He does not dismiss ambition or achievement, but he frames them within the larger reality of life's impermanence. No matter how great the accomplishments, they too will pass. This perspective, rather than discouraging effort, can release the burden of constant striving. It allows for joy in the process of living, working, and loving, rather than only in distant outcomes. The language of Ecclesiastes also reflects a profound awareness of mortality. Solomon reminds readers that life is short, that death comes to both the wise and the foolish, the rich and the poor. At first glance, this might seem somber, yet its purpose is to reframe priorities. Recognizing the brevity of life can inspire a shift from relentless busyness to intentional living. When one acknowledges that time is finite, each moment gains significance. Happiness then arises not from accumulation but from presence, from living in harmony with values and cherishing the gifts of each day. Another key lesson in Ecclesiastes is humility. Solomon acknowledges that there are mysteries beyond human understanding. Despite wisdom, wealth, or effort, many aspects of life remain uncertain. Rather than leading to despair, this awareness encourages trust and acceptance. In a modern world that prizes control and certainty, this reminder is soothing. It suggests that we need not have every answer or master every challenge. Happiness comes not from total control, but from peace within life's uncertainties. In considering burnout, Solomon's reflections invite us to reconsider our relationship with work. He recognizes labor as meaningful, but he also acknowledges its limits. Endless toil without joy becomes a burden, robbing life of its richness. In contrast, labor done with purpose, balanced with rest and enjoyment, can be deeply fulfilling. Modern workers, caught in cycles of overwork, can draw from this wisdom by seeking alignment between labor and values, recognizing the need for boundaries, and embracing rest as integral rather than optional. The rhythms of Sabbath, though not directly detailed in Ecclesiastes, align with its themes. The practice of setting aside time for rest, reflection, and spiritual renewal is a tangible way to embody the lessons Solomon articulates. In a culture of constant availability, reclaiming moments of stillness and detachment restores balance. It is a way of honoring the natural cycles of life, much as Solomon describes. The honesty of Ecclesiastes is one of its most compelling qualities. Solomon does not shy away from naming frustrations, disappointments, and the limitations of human striving. Yet through this candor, he points toward a more authentic vision of happiness. True contentment does not come from denying challenges or forcing constant positivity, but from embracing life as it is. Complex, fleeting, sometimes difficult, yet full of moments of joy and beauty. This vision is both realistic and hopeful, offering a path beyond the shallow promises of consumerism and the draining demands of non-stop labor. For those navigating the pressures of the modern economy, these lessons provide guidance. Pause and reflect on what truly matters. Resist the urge to measure worth solely by productivity or possessions. Embrace rest as a gift rather than a weakness. Celebrate ordinary pleasures as sacred. Cultivate gratitude for the portion given, without constant comparison to others. Recognize the impermanence of life not as despair, but as an invitation to live fully in the present. Ecclesiastes, then, becomes a handbook for avoiding burnout, long before the word was ever coined. Its wisdom encourages balance, humility, gratitude, and joy in simplicity. By applying these lessons, one can navigate the demands of a 24/7 economy with resilience, finding happiness not in endless striving, but in the quiet richness of a life lived with wisdom. Solomon's reflections on wealth and contentment naturally lead to a deeper question. How does one balance ambition with inner peace? His own life provides a vivid illustration of both the power and the peril of ambition. As king, he oversaw massive building projects, including the Great Temple in Jerusalem, which stood as a wonder of the ancient world. He expanded trade, strengthened political alliances, and accumulated treasures that few rulers before or after could match. His ambition fueled creativity, prosperity, and influence. Yet, at the same time, he confronted the limits of what wealth and achievement could offer, admitting in his writings that these pursuits, while impressive, did not ultimately satisfy the deepest longings of the human heart. The tension between ambition and peace is one that resonates profoundly today. Modern culture often encourages striving without end, more achievements, more recognition, more possessions, more experiences. While ambition can indeed inspire growth and innovation, unchecked ambition can lead to imbalance, exhaustion, and discontent. Solomon's wisdom offers strategies for holding ambition in harmony with inner calm, ensuring that striving does not eclipse living. One of the first strategies lies in clarifying intention. Solomon's projects were vast, but many were undertaken with clear purpose, such as the building of the temple as a place of worship. This suggests that ambition, when aligned with higher values or service beyond oneself, carries deeper meaning. In contrast, pursuits undertaken merely for vanity or comparison quickly lose their luster. For the modern individual, this means pausing to ask, what is the purpose behind my ambition? Is it rooted in values, contribution, or service, or is it driven only by external validation? The clarity of this intention can transform ambition from a restless striving into a purposeful endeavor. Another strategy is to embrace limits. Solomon acknowledged that no matter how great his achievements, they could not prevent the passage of time or the certainty of death. This recognition tempers ambition with humility. In contemporary life, the acceptance of limits can prevent the burnout that arises from overextending. Recognizing that one cannot do everything, that achievements will always be finite, and that life itself is brief, invites a gentler pursuit of goals. Instead of driving oneself endlessly, one can pursue meaningful aspirations while also cherishing rest, relationships, and reflection. Solomon also teaches the value of enjoyment along the journey. In Ecclesiastes, he often pauses to commend joy in the simple things: food, drink, labor, and companionship. This suggests that ambition should not postpone happiness until some distant goal is reached. Instead, moments of joy can be woven into the process of striving. For modern workers, this might mean celebrating small milestones, cultivating gratitude in daily routines, or ensuring that ambition does not consume the capacity to savor life's ordinary gifts. Perspective is another essential strategy. Solomon saw that even the grandest accomplishments could feel fleeting. By keeping perspective, ambition can be pursued without becoming all-consuming. This involves remembering that achievements, while valuable, are not the sole measure of a life well lived. Relationships, integrity, kindness, and peace of mind hold equal, if not greater, weight. Maintaining this perspective allows ambition to serve life rather than dominate it. Balance also requires setting boundaries. Solomon's reign illustrates both the benefits and the burdens of expansion. His numerous building projects and political alliances brought renown but also strains. Similarly, in modern life, unchecked ambition can lead to overcommitment and loss of balance. Setting boundaries on time, energy, and priorities creates space for rest and reflection. It allows ambition to flourish within sustainable limits, preserving inner peace. The role of wisdom itself cannot be overstated. Solomon valued wisdom above riches or long life, recognizing that wisdom guides ambition toward meaningful ends. Wisdom enables discernment between goals that truly matter and those that merely exhaust. It helps one see when to strive and when to rest, when to pursue and when to let go. By seeking wisdom, ambition becomes tempered, purposeful, and life-giving rather than depleting. Generosity provides another counterbalance. Solomon's teachings often highlight the importance of sharing one's portion. Ambition focused solely on personal gain becomes narrow and isolating. But when ambition leads to contributions that uplift others, it fosters both fulfillment and peace. In modern terms, this may involve using skills and resources, not only for personal advancement but also for community, family, or wider society. This outward focus turns ambition into a channel for connection rather than isolation. Reflection is also central. Solomon's writings are filled with moments of deep thought, where he pauses to evaluate the meaning of his accomplishments and the direction of his life. This habit of reflection prevents ambition from running unchecked. For modern individuals, Carving out time for reflection, whether through journaling, meditation, prayer, or quiet walks, can provide clarity. It creates space to evaluate whether ambition aligns with values and whether inner peace is being nurtured alongside achievement. Finally, trust in divine providence forms the foundation of Solomon's wisdom. He recognized that not everything is within human control, that life contains mysteries beyond human comprehension. This humility before the greater order of creation brings peace, even when ambition cannot resolve every uncertainty. In a modern context, this translates into releasing the illusion of total control. One can pursue ambitions with diligence and responsibility, while also resting in the awareness that not everything depends on individual effort. This balance fosters both striving and serenity. Together, these strategies form a coherent approach. Clarify intentions, embrace limits, savor the journey, maintain perspective, set boundaries, seek wisdom, practice generosity, cultivate reflection, and trust in what lies beyond human control. Solomon's life, marked by extraordinary ambition and tempered by profound reflection, provides a model for integrating striving with peace. Applied to the present, this means ambition can remain a powerful and inspiring force, but one that serves the larger goal of a meaningful life. Rather than driving endlessly toward horizons that never satisfy, ambition becomes a tool for growth, contribution, and fulfillment. Inner peace, nurtured through balance, reflection, and gratitude, ensures that the pursuit of goals enriches rather than depletes. Solomon's wisdom offers not a rejection of ambition, but its transformation into a life-giving pursuit, harmonized with the deeper rhythms of peace. Solomon's reflections on relationships carry a timeless quality that still speaks to the heart of modern struggles with loyalty, intimacy, and connection. His proverbs and judgments revealed not only an understanding of human nature, but also an awareness that relationships are the cornerstone of any flourishing life. Without trust, loyalty, and the ability to navigate conflict, wealth and achievements become hollow. His wisdom invites us to consider how resilience in relationships is built, not through perfection, but through the daily practice of honesty, loyalty, forgiveness, and discernment. When Solomon wrote, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity," he was not idealizing human connection. He was naming a reality. True friends and family prove their worth not in moments of ease, but when life grows difficult. This principle echoes across the centuries and resonates especially in today's fleeting digital world, where friends are often reduced to a list of followers or contacts, and bonds can dissolve with a single click. His wisdom reminds us that genuine relationships must withstand storms if they are to be truly valuable. In Solomon's own reign, he navigated alliances and partnerships that blended politics with personal ties. Kings and rulers often sent daughters into marriage as gestures of peace. Solomon's court became a hub of such alliances, reflecting the role of relationships in shaping larger systems of power. Yet his writings also contain warnings about superficial or transactional bonds, noting that wealth brings many friends, but a poor man's friend deserts him. Here he acknowledged the fragility of relationships built on convenience or advantage rather than loyalty and affection. The same truth holds today. when friendships or partnerships often collapse under strain once the benefits disappear. Conflict was another theme Solomon did not shy away from addressing. In Proverbs, he advised that a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. This simple yet profound principle captures the mechanics of escalation. A moment of restraint, a soft word, or a listening ear has the power to disarm tension, while pride and harshness ignite flames. In an age marked by online arguments and quick tempers, this guidance is remarkably practical. Modern relationships often fail not because of monumental betrayals, but because small conflicts are allowed to harden into bitterness. Solomon's insight into the psychology of communication offers a roadmap for breaking that cycle. Loyalty formed another cornerstone of his wisdom. He wrote of the beauty of steadfast love and the strength it offers. "Do not forsake your friend and the friend of your father," he urged, emphasizing continuity and loyalty across generations. Such counsel stands in stark contrast to the culture of disposability that pervades many modern relationships. In a world where it is easy to cut ties or walk away, Solomon's reminder to honor long-standing bonds invites us to slow down and weigh carefully the value of loyalty. It suggests that resilience in relationships grows through patience and the honoring of shared history, not through abandoning connections at the first sign of hardship. He also spoke of companionship as a shield against isolation and weakness. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If one falls, his friend can help him up. This imagery highlights both the practical and emotional power of partnership. Whether in friendships, marriages, or communities, resilience is born in the willingness to support one another in moments of struggle. The metaphor remains vivid today. When burnout, depression, or loneliness threaten to overwhelm, the presence of a trusted companion can be the difference between despair and recovery. In many ways, Solomon's wisdom anticipates modern psychology's emphasis on social support networks. Studies affirm that strong, loyal relationships reduce stress, increase resilience, and even extend lifespan. What Solomon observed intuitively, modern science confirms. Yet, unlike our fragmented and often superficial networks, his vision pointed toward relationships marked by intentionality, loyalty, and depth. Trust was another thread woven throughout his counsel. A gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy man keeps a secret, he warned. This guidance speaks not only to personal integrity, but also to the foundations of resilience in relationships. Without trust, every bond erodes. Whether in marriage, friendship, or business, once betrayal enters, rebuilding takes years and sometimes proves impossible. Solomon's emphasis on guarding confidences offers a timeless reminder that trust is cultivated by consistency, discretion, and honesty. Even in his critiques, Solomon displayed balance. He warned against over-reliance on others, writing, "Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house too much of you, and he will hate you." This reveals an understanding of boundaries. Relationships thrive on closeness, but suffocate under intrusion. This is especially striking today in a culture where constant availability is expected. Messages, calls, and notifications create the illusion that boundaries are optional. Solomon's wisdom reminds us that balance between presence and space is essential for lasting bonds. Marriage, too, reflected this nuanced wisdom. While Solomon's own household was complicated by political marriages and vast numbers, his writings still contain insights into intimacy and loyalty. He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord. This proverb elevates marriage as a blessing rooted not in convenience or alliance, but in the joy of companionship and faithfulness. His Song of Songs, a poetic dialogue between lovers, also reveals his recognition of passion, delight, and mutual respect as vital to marital resilience. Taken together, these principles form a blueprint for healthier modern relationships. In an era where friendships can dissolve over misunderstandings, where marriages collapse under the pressure of unmet expectations, and where conflicts flare across social media, Solomon's wisdom offers enduring clarity. Resilience is not about avoiding conflict, but about choosing loyalty, practicing forgiveness, speaking gently, and honoring trust. Consider how these teachings apply in the context of modern friendships. Today, one might have hundreds of contacts yet feel deeply alone. Solomon's words invite us to cultivate a few relationships with depth rather than scatter our energy across shallow connections. Loyalty, consistency, and trust transform ordinary friendships into lifelines during adversity. The same principles apply in romantic relationships. Resilience emerges not from perfection or constant excitement, but from the shared decision to weather challenges together, speaking truth in love, and choosing gentleness over hostility. Even in professional settings, Solomon's wisdom speaks volumes. A team marked by loyalty, trust, and honest communication can withstand stress far more effectively than one riddled with conflict and suspicion. Leaders who embody these values echo Solomon's insights, fostering resilience within organizations just as he sought to nurture it among his people. Ultimately, what Solomon offered was not a set of rigid rules, but a vision of relationships rooted in loyalty, honesty, and gentleness. He understood that resilience in bonds does not mean the absence of storms, but the ability to endure them together. This wisdom is timeless, bridging the distance between ancient courts and modern living rooms, between the struggles of kings and the daily challenges of ordinary people. In his words, we still find a blueprint for connection that can help us build relationships strong enough to withstand the fleeting pressures of our age. Modern challenges in relationships often take new forms, but the underlying struggles are ones Solomon would have recognized. The tools of communication may have changed, yet the heart of human connection, trust, loyalty, honesty, and patience remains constant. The wisdom he preserved offers a strikingly relevant framework for navigating phenomena like ghosting, online dating fatigue, and the pursuit of authenticity in a digital environment filled with noise and distraction. Ghosting, for instance, has become a common and painful reality in the landscape of modern relationships. The sudden disappearance of communication without explanation leaves individuals confused and often doubting their own worth. Solomon's teachings confront this behavior not with harsh condemnation, but with a call toward honesty and gentleness. An honest answer is like a kiss on the lips, he observed, recognizing the dignity that truth brings. even when it is difficult to hear. Applied to modern dynamics, this wisdom encourages clarity and respect in communication. Choosing honesty over disappearance preserves the humanity of both parties, and though it may not spare disappointment, it avoids the deeper wounds of abandonment and confusion. Online dating fatigue reflects another dimension of modern disillusionment. The endless cycle of swiping, brief conversations, and shallow interactions leaves many exhausted. In this context, Solomon's reminder that better is a little with righteousness than much gain with injustice speaks with surprising relevance. The verse can be understood beyond material possessions. It applies to the pursuit of love as well. A single, genuine connection outweighs dozens of fleeting encounters. His counsel points towards slowing down, valuing depth over quantity, and recognizing that patience in seeking a meaningful bond ultimately yields greater satisfaction than the endless pursuit of novelty. Moreover, his warnings about superficial relationships find echoes in today's digital dating culture. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, he wrote in praise of inner character over outward allure. The constant scrolling through carefully curated profiles fosters judgments based solely on appearance. Solomon's wisdom reminds us to seek qualities that endure beyond the surface. Kindness, loyalty, humility, and faithfulness. Such guidance cuts through the exhaustion of endless comparisons by recentering the search on what truly sustains a resilient bond. Maintaining genuine connections in a world saturated with technology presents perhaps the greatest challenge of all. Social media creates the illusion of closeness, yet studies reveal increasing loneliness. Solomon's vision of companionship as a bulwark against isolation speaks powerfully here. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. True connection requires active presence, accountability, and the willingness to challenge and uplift one another. Digital exchanges, while useful, cannot replace the sharpening effect of honest, face-to-face interaction, where empathy is not filtered through a screen. Solomon also cautioned against the fickleness of shallow companions. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. This principle resonates in the context of today's wide but shallow networks. The multitude of followers or online contacts may give the impression of being surrounded, yet resilience is built not on numbers but on depth. One loyal friend is more valuable than hundreds of surface-level connections. Applying this truth requires intentional effort to nurture a small circle of meaningful relationships rather than chasing breadth at the expense of depth. Even the dynamic of disappearing or unreliable relationships finds a parallel in his observations. He noted that fair-weather friends abandon in times of difficulty, while true companions endure. Modern ghosting reflects the same truth. Solomon recognized relationships without loyalty crumble when tested. His wisdom pushes against this culture of disposability by urging us to cultivate faithfulness and to honor commitments even when they require effort. To counter online dating fatigue, Solomon's insights can guide practical steps. Patience, discernment, and clarity in intention are all central. Rather than scattering energy across countless interactions, one might focus on cultivating honesty, setting clear expectations, and refusing to compromise on values. This not only reduces exhaustion, but also aligns the pursuit of connection with qualities that lead to genuine resilience. For those navigating the complexity of maintaining genuine ties in an overconnected world, Solomon's words offer a compass. Boundaries, gentleness in speech, consistency in loyalty, and honesty in all interactions form the bedrock of resilience. They remind us that even in a digital environment, the same ancient principles apply. Respect others' dignity, value depth over appearance, and prioritize faithfulness over convenience. What emerges is a striking continuity between ancient and modern life. Though Solomon never encountered dating apps or social media platforms, his insights cut across centuries to address the same human fears, hopes, and needs. By applying his principles, one finds not only relief from the fatigue and confusion of modern relationships, but also the possibility of deeper, more lasting connections that resist the fleeting pressures of our age. In an age where fragmentation seems to touch every part of life, the call to cultivate stronger bonds becomes not just important but essential. The sheer pace of modern existence, with its constant demands, shifting loyalties, and the illusion of endless connection, often leaves people drifting without roots. Solomon's writings and observations press against this current. His emphasis on true companionship, grounded in loyalty, faithfulness, and shared purpose, provides a framework for building connections that endure even when society itself feels fractured. He observed with piercing clarity that two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. These words go beyond simple partnership and enter into the realm of resilience. Bonds forged on such principles create strength in the midst of fragmentation. They are not transactional or fleeting, but deeply rooted in mutual care. In today's world, where many experience isolation even within crowded environments, this wisdom speaks with a tender urgency. Companionship becomes not a luxury, but a form of protection, a shield against despair, and a reminder of shared humanity. Cultivating such bonds requires intentionality. Solomon often linked the health of relationships to the careful tending of a vineyard or a field. A friendship or partnership, like a garden, does not flourish without attention. The analogy applies beautifully to modern relationships, which are often neglected under the strain of busy schedules and digital distractions. Investing time, showing patience, and offering consistent presence are all acts that slowly strengthen ties. Just as Solomon praised diligence in work, he implicitly praised diligence in relationships, for they require the same steady hand. Another insight from his writings rests in the recognition that companionship must be rooted in truth. Better is open rebuke than hidden love, he said, underscoring that honesty, even when it stings, fortifies bonds more than silence or avoidance. In a fragmented world where politeness often disguises indifference and where avoidance replaces difficult conversations, this counsel encourages a return to sincerity. Speaking truth in love sustains trust, and trust in turn anchors companionship in a way that withstands storms. Solomon also drew attention to the refining power of friendship. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Companionship is not simply about comfort but about growth. Strong bonds challenge, refine, and encourage one another to pursue higher paths. In a culture that often promotes easy affirmation without depth, his wisdom reminds us that a true companion does not flatter without cause, but gently pushes us toward becoming more than we are. These sharpening interactions, while sometimes uncomfortable, create resilience and depth. Applying this in the modern context, where fragmentation often results from differences of opinion, worldviews, or cultural divides, means approaching companionship with humility and openness. Solomon's recognition of human limitation, his admission that wisdom is greater than wealth, and yet even wisdom cannot grasp, all mysteries teaches us to extend grace within our relationships. Stronger bonds are not built upon perfection or total agreement, but upon patience, forgiveness, and a willingness to carry one another's burdens. In practical terms, cultivating such ties today might look like slowing down to prioritize presence over productivity. It could be as simple as creating spaces where people feel seen and heard without judgment. In an age of hurried exchanges and surface-level communication, slowing down enough to listen fully becomes a radical act of love. Solomon's counsel on the value of words, how gentle speech turns away wrath, and how thoughtless words wound deeply remains essential for this kind of cultivation. Each word spoken has the power either to deepen connection or to fracture it further. Another layer of his wisdom lies in his reflections on legacy. Companionship is not only about the present moment, but also about what endures beyond a lifetime. By stressing that a cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken, Solomon pointed toward bonds that include a transcendent dimension, ties that are strengthened by shared faith, purpose, or values that extend beyond individual desires. In modern life, where fragmentation often stems from shallow or shifting foundations, rooting companionship in something greater than self can restore depth and stability. Ultimately, Solomon's emphasis on companionship offers a way to resist the loneliness and fragmentation that plague contemporary society. His insights invite us to replace transience with permanence, superficiality with depth, and distraction with attentive presence. Cultivating stronger bonds becomes not only an antidote to isolation, but also a path toward a richer, more resilient life. In honoring the principles, he laid out loyalty, honesty, patience, faithfulness, and shared purpose. We rediscover that true companionship remains as vital now as it was in his day, perhaps even more so in a world that hungers for connection amidst its endless noise. Solomon's reflections on life often circle back to a single pressing question: what does it all mean? His wealth, his power, and his achievements placed him in a position to explore every path that promised fulfillment. He built palaces, planted gardens, accumulated riches, and surrounded himself with wisdom. Yet again and again, in the book of Ecclesiastes, he returned to the same refrain: meaningless, meaningless, everything is meaningless. These words were not the voice of despair, but of recognition. He had tested every worldly avenue and discovered that none of them provided the lasting satisfaction the human soul craves. This ultimate search for meaning mirrors the restlessness that defines so much of modern life. People pursue careers, accomplishments, and recognition with the hope that such pursuits will cement their legacy or bring them peace. Yet even after milestones are achieved, the quiet question often arises: is this all there is? Solomon's wisdom is invaluable in confronting this tension because he had already walked the road of restless ambition. He tasted the finest pleasures, enjoyed the greatest privileges, and reached the highest status. In the end, he realized that purpose is not found in accumulation but in alignment with something greater than oneself. For Solomon, that greater alignment was with God. His writings reveal a constant return to the fear of the Lord as the foundation of wisdom and ultimately the foundation of purpose. He recognized that all other pursuits, whether wealth, power, or even knowledge, were fleeting when disconnected from the eternal. The call to modern listeners is strikingly similar. In a world where legacy is often measured in likes, followers, or fleeting success, the reminder that meaning lies in something enduring is both refreshing and sobering. Solomon's quest also highlights the fragile nature of legacy. Despite his grand achievements, he was deeply aware that all he had built could easily pass to someone else who might not value it. "I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun," he confessed, "because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish." This admission reveals the futility of seeking permanence in things that inevitably slip away. Modern parallels abound. Careers, possessions, and reputations may all be handed off or forgotten in time. The question then becomes, what kind of legacy can truly endure? The answer Solomon points toward is one rooted not in possessions but in principles. A life lived with wisdom, compassion, justice, and humility creates ripples that extend beyond material inheritance. Even in today's fragmented world, the impact of character outlasts the fading glow of temporary success. When someone chooses integrity over compromise, kindness over cruelty, or faithfulness over selfish gain, they participate in the kind of legacy that Solomon came to value most. His reflections also resonate with the modern hunger for impact. Many people feel a deep desire to contribute to something larger than themselves. Yet in the pursuit of impact, there is often burnout and disillusionment, especially when recognition is slow or when efforts seem overlooked. Solomon's journey reminds us that impact is not always loud or immediate. Sometimes it is quiet, seen only by those close by. Yet even in its quietness, it has lasting value. He reminds us that to everything there is a season, including a season for planting seeds whose fruits may not be seen in one's lifetime. Purpose, then, becomes less about grasping for permanence in worldly terms and more about faithfully living in alignment with eternal values. Solomon's legacy was not simply his wealth or his buildings, but the wisdom he preserved for future generations. His words have guided countless lives across centuries, far surpassing the reach of his material accomplishments. In the same way, each person today has the opportunity to shape a legacy not defined by the accumulation of things, but by the cultivation of wisdom and love that will ripple outward in unseen ways. In this sense, Solomon's search for meaning offers both a warning and a hope. The warning lies in the futility of chasing satisfaction in what does not endure. The hope lies in the discovery that even in a world full of vanity, one can find purpose by aligning with what is eternal, by seeking wisdom, and by living in a way that reflects faithfulness and compassion. This perspective transforms the modern quest for purpose into something gentler and yet far more profound. It becomes not a desperate chase, but a steady walk, rooted in values that outlast time. The search for meaning, then, is not a relic of the past, but a living question that continues to shape lives today. Solomon's voice, echoing through the centuries, gently reminds us that fulfillment is not found in endless striving, but in embracing the truth that our deepest purpose rests in something greater, something that endures when all else fades. When Solomon declared all is vanity, his words were not meant to plunge the listener into despair, but to awaken the heart to discernment. Vanity, in his language, meant vapor, a breath, something fleeting and insubstantial. He was not dismissing life as worthless, but pointing out how much of what people chase proves temporary and elusive. When seen through this lens, his statement becomes less a cry of cynicism and more a call to clarity, urging people to focus on what truly carries weight. Modern life thrives on the pursuit of what is fleeting. The relentless push for recognition, possessions, or fleeting pleasures often leads to exhaustion without lasting peace. Solomon's insight interrupts that cycle with the reminder that these things, like vapor, cannot be grasped firmly. They slip away with time, leaving only the enduring values of wisdom, love, and faithfulness. To apply his wisdom today is to shift attention from the endless chase of what fades to the quiet cultivation of what endures. This perspective becomes particularly powerful when considering legacy. Building a meaningful legacy is not about amassing more achievements for others to admire, but about embedding one's life in principles that transcend circumstance. Solomon understood that riches and accomplishments could vanish or pass to heirs who may squander them, but he also knew that wisdom shared, justice upheld, and love practiced create legacies that remain vibrant long after material treasures are forgotten. One way to interpret his words is to see them as a gentle reordering of priorities. When he says all is vanity, he strips away illusions that so often consume human effort. The long hours spent accumulating wealth, the restless striving for acclaim, the desperate grasping at control, all are revealed to be vapor. Yet within this stripping away lies the opportunity to see what remains after illusions have vanished. Relationships, integrity, the pursuit of wisdom and devotion to God emerge as the steady pillars on which a meaningful life is built. This wisdom invites each person to pause and examine their own pursuits. Are the hours of effort being invested in something that will fade like mist with the morning sun? Or are they being woven into something that outlasts time? Solomon's own journey shows that one can have the world's wealth and knowledge, yet still feel the emptiness of chasing what does not endure. His words call the listener to redirect their energy toward cultivating love, serving others, and living in alignment with eternal truths. Applying this perspective does not mean abandoning work, ambition, or creativity. Rather, it means grounding them in a higher purpose. Ambition is transformed when it becomes a means to serve rather than a race to outshine. Wealth takes on meaning when it is used to uplift rather than to hoard. Knowledge finds fulfillment when it is shared generously rather than guarded jealously. Each of these pursuits, when detached from vanity, becomes a tool for building a legacy that reflects light and truth rather than vapor. There is also a freedom in acknowledging that much of life is beyond control. Solomon recognized the limitations of human effort, noting that time and chance happen to all. This realization can lead to despair if misunderstood, but when embraced through his lens, it relieves the burden of trying to control the uncontrollable. It allows one to focus energy on what can truly matter, how one treats others, the values one lives by, and the quiet choices made each day that ripple outward into eternity. A legacy built on these principles requires no grand gestures. It grows in the daily acts of kindness, the patient endurance of difficulty, and the consistent pursuit of truth. Solomon's wisdom reminds us that greatness is not measured by the size of one's empire, but by the depth of one's faithfulness. The parent who nurtures a child, the friend who offers loyalty, the worker who acts with integrity, all contribute to legacies that no vanity can erase. By reframing all is vanity, not as hopelessness but as an invitation to look deeper, Solomon provides a map for navigating the distractions of modern life. The noise of constant striving loses its hold when one learns to see it for what it is: vapor. In its place emerges a quieter, more enduring path, where the focus is on building bonds of love, living with integrity, and aligning with what transcends time. In this way, his ancient words become not a lament but a liberation, a call to let go of illusions and invest in what carries true and lasting weight. Solomon's wisdom, while lofty in its poetry and grandeur, becomes most transformative when it is woven into the small choices of everyday life. His teachings are not meant to remain confined to scrolls or sermons, but to guide the way we rise in the morning, the way we labor, the way we love, and the way we rest. One practical step is to begin each day by clarifying your priorities. Solomon reminds us that chasing every wind leads only to exhaustion. Before diving into tasks, ask yourself, which of these will truly matter by the end of the day, by the end of the year, by the end of my life? This practice of intentional focus cuts through the noise of endless distractions. Another step is to measure wealth not by possessions, but by what they enable. When Solomon reflected on his palaces, gardens, and treasuries, he came to understand that material riches without peace and gratitude were hollow. In modern life, this might mean shifting your gaze from acquiring more things to savoring what you already have, and using your resources to create shared joy with others. Time, too, becomes sacred when seen through Solomon's lens. He wrote that there is a season for every purpose. To live wisely, you might practice giving undivided attention to the present season rather than yearning for another. When working, work with diligence. When resting, rest without guilt. When with loved ones, let them feel that nothing pulls your heart away. Solomon also urged us to guard our hearts, for from them flow the springs of life. Applied today, This could be as simple as limiting the voices that sow envy or bitterness within you. Curate what you read, watch, and absorb, so that your inner garden remains fertile ground for peace, gratitude, and kindness. Finally, Solomon teaches that a legacy is built through consistent, humble choices. Small daily acts of honesty, generosity, and patience shape a reputation more enduring than monuments. Instead of waiting for grand opportunities to make an impact, recognize that your steady presence in the lives of others is already laying bricks in the foundation of your legacy. In following these steps, Solomon's ancient wisdom transforms from distant echoes into living guidance, shaping how you move through today and how you will be remembered tomorrow. As we come to the gentle close of this reflection on the wisdom of Solomon, let your heart rest in the quiet assurance that life's truest treasures are not found in gold, crowns, or fleeting applause, but in peace of mind, love that endures, and a life lived with purpose. Solomon's voice echoes through the ages, reminding us to seek what matters most, to cherish those who walk beside us, and to find beauty even in the ordinary rhythms of each day. May these timeless truths settle softly upon your spirit tonight, like the calm of evening after a long journey. May you be reminded that your worth is not measured by endless striving, but by the love you give, the kindness you show, and the peace you nurture within yourself. And so I bless you now with rest that refreshes your soul, with clarity that lightens your burdens, and with joy that flows quietly, like a river through your days. May you sleep in peace, rise with hope, and walk forward knowing you are never alone, for the wisdom of God gently guides your steps. Rest well, dear one, and may your dreams be filled with light.